Hey everyone, my guest today is John Graham, a former Navy SEAL. Graham is a UC Berkeley PhD, a professor emeritus at UC Irvine, and a world class expert in international trade and negotiations. At UCI, he co founded the Center for Citizen Peacebuilding in 2001. His academic publications have garnered several awards. He currently has books in print on peace related topics of international business, multi generational families, and drug policy. He has also written a major historical novel involving three wars: World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and two children's books. He has advised Fortune 500 companies and government institutes, including the U.S. Peace Institute and the U.S. Marine Corps. His writing has been the subject of interviews in the Wall Street Journal, Smithsonian, NBC, ABC, Fox News, BBC, and NPR. Welcome to the show, John. I want to thank you for being here today.
Well, Sam, it's great to meet you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Would you be able to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Sure. I'm retired. I taught at a business school at UC Irvine, the Mirage Business School, for 30 years. And before that at USC, I taught international business, but I also worked with folks. We started an organization called the Center for Citizen Peacebuilding. And so my main research area has been international negotiation. We've studied how people negotiate in 22 different countries and cultures. And that brought me to applying the information about negotiation styles and how they differ around the world to not only business situations, but also situations in the home and international commerce between companies and international negotiations between countries. And so I've consulted in all those different places on that topic. And that's what I'm up to. And I've written a number of books, all of them oriented toward peace building. The most popular one is a textbook called International Marketing. And in that, we have a chapter on what we call inventive negotiation.
Okay.
And the key book I want to promote is the title is "And How to Build Relationships Through Inventive Negotiation." So that's the key concept. But I'm happy to talk about any negotiations in any of those topic areas.
Yeah. Do you have a copy of your book next to you?
If your listeners and viewers go to the website, inventivenegotiation.com.
Okay.
It'll get you to the book. It's on Amazon, but you can also download it for free in 9 different languages.
Oh, wow.
So if you happen to speak Russian, you can download it in Russian or Chinese or Spanish, a lot of different languages.
Perfect. I do have about 30% of my audience on Apple and Spotify are from different countries. So I don't know what they're getting out of the show, but they're listening. So.
Well, that's what we're trying to do, spread the word globally.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have it. And we're translating it into other languages too.
Okay.
Among them, Arabic, Persian. But anyway, they're listed on the website. So if people go to inventivenegotiation.com.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I thought that negotiation was such an interesting just concept to study. So, I guess I never really thought about how people might negotiate differently. So,
go ahead.
What do you think the United States does differently, or do you think it depends on which administration's in charge?
Well, it does depend on which administration is in charge, and people. I mean, personality affects negotiation behavior. But we see some real strong differences. For example, the first culture I studied, we compared how Japanese and Americans negotiate. And the most interesting finding from that work, and we then presented our findings to Ford Motor Company, We worked on a big
Okay.
consulting project teaching their executives how to negotiate with Japanese. And the key problem that comes up when Japanese and Americans are sitting face to face talking to each other is the American will ask a question, the Japanese has to think about it and put the
Mhm.
answer back into English because most Americans don't speak Japanese,
Yeah.
and while the American is waiting, there's a silent period, and Americans can't stand silence, so
Yeah.
Americans start talking again. And so the way that combination works out over time is during a negotiation between Americans and Japanese, Ford at Nissan, for example, we work with
Uh-huh.
a group specifically at those two companies. What
Yeah.
ends up happening is the American is doing all the talking and the Japanese is doing all the listening. So at the end of a 2-day program at Ford, the main recommendation, which they found quite valuable, was if you're negotiating with Japanese, keep your mouth shut
Yeah.
and let them talk. Now, the opposite happens if you go to another country, a different problem pops up for Americans. The classic case right now is Iran.
Mhm.
So in our studies, we have people play a negotiation game. We videotape. We have a bunch of people fill out questionnaires, and we do a lot of field work. And
Yeah.
so we develop a profile of how people negotiate. And the way Americans and Iranians don't get along is uh, Iranians talk over Americans. So it's the opposite of the Japanese. So
Okay.
Americans get frustrated when Iranians interrupt them. We don't like interruptions. We tell our kids, don't interrupt.
Yeah.
But part of their culture is people are talking at the same time. It's also true in a place like Brazil. And
Okay.
so Americans are uncomfortable almost immediately negotiating uh, with an Iranian counterpart. And the other
Yeah.
side of it, we aren't very good at building relationships, interpersonal relationships, and taking the time to do that. That
Mhm.
requires going to dinner and entertainment,
Yeah.
and so our my favorite saying or comment is a Dutch negotiator wrote an article in a Spanish newspaper, which I
Okay.
happened to find when I was sitting in a cafe in Spain, and I was reading it. I always pay attention to the Dutch guys because they
Uh-huh.
know about 5 languages, and
Okay.
it's a small country, so they uh, do business in a lot of different places. And his name is Sanfritz Lepool, and Lepool said the best negotiators in the world are the Japanese because they'll spend days getting to know their counterparts. The worst are Americans because Americans think everything works everywhere like it works in America.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
task has been explain to Americans things work differently. In fact, in some places they work better, places like
Mhm.
Japan or the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So we can learn. But that's the main thing I talk about it in a business setting.
Yeah.
Although the same kind of stuff comes up, for example, in cross-cultural marriages,
Oh, really?
similar problems.
Yeah. I suppose so. That's
Yeah, I mean, marriage is kind of a negotiation, in
yeah.
a sense.
Yeah. Well, even, as you were describing it, I could relate even just in podcasting and having conversations where, if you're talking over each other, other people can't hear what you're saying, which is the point of this. So, some people that I talk to, they're really comfortable with me taking my time, letting them finish, and then I talk. But other people, they get uncomfortable by the silence, and they're like, "Do you have an opinion on that?" And it's like, it's
Yeah.
like, well, just trying to be
So
a
that
little bit more professional, but yeah.
yeah, so now I'm interrupting, I'm sorry.
No, you're I was done anyways.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you get the idea.
Yeah, yeah. This isn't related, but I wanted to know, why is China not a this has nothing to do with it, I'm so sorry. What you have some stuff about China and global peace and, the causes of international peace. So, I guess let's start with there. So, what are the causes of international peace?
Um, so in working with the Center for Citizen Peace Building for the last 15 years or so,
Uh-huh.
we talk about those kinds of things. And part of it is most of it is people meeting face to face. And that can be in sports and ping
Mhm.
pong, if you like, um, uh, in groups that are intended to bring people together to talk about peace. But by far, the main way that peace happens is through international trade.
Okay.
And so I've been having a tough time with the Trump administration because he's kind of
Yeah.
destroying something that's, I think, is super important. And
Yeah.
international trade works in three important ways.
Mhm.
One is it builds interdependence between countries. So we're trading with the Chinese a lot,
Yeah.
and neither side can really cut things off um, without causing all kinds of damage to both sides.
Yeah.
And, so it creates interdependence. It creates interpersonal interaction across cultures, and people on both sides learn about one another's culture. When you travel to the other country or they come and visit you, my favorite anecdote is I have a German colleague. He came to Los Angeles. He went and I was going to pick him up at the airport and take him out to dinner.
Mhm.
And I said, "What would you like?" He said, "Oh, something local." So we went to a Mexican restaurant. I
Okay.
said, I'd never met anybody that hadn't had guacamole before.
Oh, really?
And we had margaritas and all the typical stuff you get in a California Mexican restaurant. And
Yeah.
at the end of the meal, I said, "How'd you like that?" And he said, "Oh, it wasn't very good." And
Yeah.
if I were going to ask an American that and they didn't like it, they'd say, "Well, it was pretty good, but I didn't like the one part of it." But the
Yeah.
Germans are famous for their frankness,
Yeah.
and so if I didn't know that, I may have felt bad, but instead I thought it
Yeah.
was funny. So this interpersonal um, interaction is an important part of international trade. And the
Mhm.
third thing, which is maybe the most important of all, is we get creativity and invention in international relations. Anybody that studies, and I've taught classes in innovation processes at the business school. In fact, my
Okay.
co-author in the book, Linda Lawrence, owned an advertising agency, and she's an
Okay.
expert on creative processes. And diversity at the table really helps creativity. Once you can begin to talk to each other,
Yeah.
in the long run, we know from studies at the business schools, the diversity really adds to the ideas put on the table. Men and
Yeah.
women see things differently, have different ideas. Um, Americans and Japanese have different ideas. So that the three things
Mhm.
all build peace: the
Yeah.
interdependence, economic interdependence, the interpersonal interaction, and the invention. And that, particularly the invention and trade, have led to the progress of mankind for 300,000 years. It all started back with the early Homo sapiens in
Mhm.
Africa. And we talk about that in the book
Okay.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all really good points with the like with the tariffs and the trade. You
I'm
you
sorry?
know, you huh? Oh, you kind of I think people kind of miss that as in it's more of a relationship with other countries. So, um, when Trump came into office and he wanted to make the tariffs fair, instead of changing them all right away, maybe he should have taken more time to negotiate if he felt something was unfair and built a better relationship. Would you agree with that?
Um, yes, yes. I mean, we should be building a relationship, a strong relationship with China because we've got some common problems. The biggest one, of course, is the environmental or
Mhm.
sustainability issue. And
Yeah.
we're the two worst polluters in the world, and we should be collaborating on that. And we
Yeah.
aren't doing very well. And it's not just the Republican administration, it's also the Democrats. They worry about importing, for example, inexpensive Chinese solar panels.
Mhm.
Instead, we should be thinking about, oh, if we can get really cheap solar panels, then we can employ a lot of Americans in installing them on American roofs. And so there's a real employment opportunity in that trade. And we should be doing that. In fact, I don't know why we don't have solar panels on every roof in the world, because
Right.
that would really make a big difference. And so we should be collaborating um,
Yeah.
on that topic. The other area we should be collaborating on is health. We both have huge elderly problems in both
Mhm.
countries. And anyway, that's a whole nother story. I've
Yeah.
written a book on that topic as
Oh,
well.
have you?
The book on Under One Roof on multi-generational living.
Okay.
But
That's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so, yeah, I have heard other people talk about that, how, you know, you don't have multiple generations living under a roof here in America anymore. Does China do the same?
Well, China is a really different topic because they had a one-child policy for a long
Oh,
time.
yes.
And
Yeah.
that's really interacting in an interesting way in their manufacturing. But in the United States, all over the world, people live in multi-generational households, except in the United States for the last 50 years and in some northern European countries for the last 50 years. So we've had this big experiment with what we call nuclear families. And that hasn't worked, particularly
Yeah.
when both adults in a nuclear family are working. The childcare needs are huge. And grandparents, that's always been a grandparent job. We've
Yeah.
got a couple of grandkids. We're going to go babysit them next month for a few days to help out our son
Yeah.
and his wife, who both work. But it's really the natural way. We're designed to live in multi generational families, in the way we communicate and how we feel. Um, the worst possible situation is one of the worst situations is, or consequences of not living that way, is loneliness.
Mhm.
And yes, your relative or your sister or your mother, or your father, or whoever drive you crazy. But in the end, that those relationships are super important, particularly when there's a
Yeah.
lot of stresses on from other parts of the society. And I can quote
Yeah.
Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist, once said, "The only reliable institution is the family. Government
Yeah.
always fails us." And that's kind of what's going on in the States right now. And it relates to the elderly baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer, and we're crushing the healthcare and pension systems. And you guys,
Oh,
you're not a baby boomer. You
right.
guys are suffering the consequences of that. It's not our fault,
Right. Right.
but anyway. So the extended
Yeah.
family is super important.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know very many people that, that have their parents, living with them to help with the, childcare if they're both working, but I do know a couple that have done it for years, and I could see where it would be financially beneficial, but also there's something that I just love about people that are older than me that have lived a complete. My grandma was born in 1939 and she lives across the street from me now.
Oh, great.
And in the stories that she has to tell, I wish my other grandparents had lived longer and I could have learned from them as well, because it takes you into a completely different time when she starts talking about how things were like when she grew up. You know.
Yeah, and what's interesting about your example is in the statistics on it. So the
Mhm.
statistics are from the Census Bureau. Um, about 20% of Americans live in three generational households.
Okay.
25% of elders, 65 and older, live in multi generational households. But those statistics don't capture your grandmother living across the street. So the
Right.
number is even much bigger, and it's been growing. We have three editions of the book now. The latest is Under One Roof. the
Uh-huh.
first published in 2007. And the trend has been, I'm not sure which way to go with it, but the trend has been straight up
Okay.
in growth in that. And it's just going to continue.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind going back to China, we were discussing our relationship with China, um, and how we have a lot in common with them if you look further into it. Why would you say China's not a threat to the United States?
Well, that's a great question. And I've been saying this for a quarter century.
Mhm.
And if you go back to the year 2000, we uh, welcomed China into the trading system.
Yeah.
And things were going really well. We were really helping China out of poverty at that point in time, and we were collaborating. The problem is in the 2000 election, George Bush was running against Al Gore. You probably don't remember that,
Oh,
but
I do actually.
oh, okay. Well, anyway,
Is
that
Yeah.
was the race, and it
Yeah.
ends up that the Republicans had a video of Al Gore in actually in Orange County, California, visiting a blanking on the he was visiting a Chinese church.
Okay.
He had video on him, so they wanted to make a big deal about that.
Mhm.
So in 1999, I'm going to show you another book,
Okay.
The Cox Report. This was published by my congressman, actually, Christopher Cox. He was chair of
Okay.
the committee. And in the book, it detailed Chinese espionage in the United States.
Okay.
And the purpose of that was to give the Republicans a way to criticize Gore. And it worked. Everything they did worked. And we ended
Okay.
up with Bush as president. And
Yeah.
the other thing that had happened in the 90s was the Soviet Union disintegrated. That was no longer a threat.
Mhm.
So, one of our main industries in this country is weapons making. In order to
Okay.
keep the weapon makers happy, everybody did, the government and industry did what they did, what they called the China pivot. So,
Okay.
China suddenly became the big potential enemy.
Okay.
It's related to communism and all that. That's a longer story. But
Yeah.
in that year, China became a big problem. Bush carried on this criticism for his entire administration.
Mhm.
All this time, the companies were collaborating anyway. The Chinese were doing espionage and stealing intellectual property. We were doing espionage on China. We had airplanes flying over or near China, spying on them. So, the spying is kind of a silly issue because everybody does it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
anyway, we were getting closer together, but politically we had this divide, this fear of China going to attack us. Now it
Mhm.
seems kind of silly in a couple of ways. One is if you look at defense spending, we spend, I don't know, 5 times what they spend
Yeah.
uh, on defense. You have to add in the American calculus what we spend on the Veterans Administration, which is cleaning up after our wars.
Okay.
So that's how I get to 5 times. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Trump is talking about spending another uh, 200 billion on top of that.
Mhm.
You know, there's no way that China is going to attack the United States. In fact, actually attacking other countries is kind of going out of style. Uh,
Yeah.
it's happening. But if you look at what's happened with Russia, they thought they were going to be through with that war in Ukraine in a
Right.
week, and they
Yeah.
still aren't done. And who knows where the Iranian thing is going. But I
Yeah.
think there was just a podcast today by Keith Bradshaw in the New
Okay.
York Times. Everybody should listen to that.
Okay.
And you could listen to that and you say, oh, the Chinese are dominating manufacturing around the world. This is terrible. Well, if you start out being afraid because of this fear mongering of the Republicans in 2000, then it is terrible. But there's another way to look at it.
Mhm.
Right now, the biggest danger to you and me is nuclear war.
Yeah.
Both the US and the Russians are sitting on 5,000 nuclear warheads. That's enough to kill all humans on the planet.
Yeah.
The Japanese are way behind, but because I'm sorry, not the Japanese, the Chinese are way behind. And the
Okay.
way that there's a couple of ways the Chinese can catch up, and they want to. One
Mhm.
is they can turn on their manufacturing, and they can make all kinds of rockets, delivery rockets, and nuclear weapons really fast.
Yeah.
But they could do everybody a favor on the planet if they just said to the United States and Russia, listen, you guys start dismantling and we'll slow down on building and we'll get to parity, but it'll be a much safer place if you begin dismantling your nuclear weapons.
Mhm.
Both the Russians and we have a similar problem. Our nuclear assets, our nuclear weapons assets are deteriorating fast. And so
Okay.
this is a weird opportunity that the Chinese have because their manufacturing is so good. So I'm
Yeah.
not afraid of that. We should
Yeah.
learn from that. Maybe we get to a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
Um,
That'd be nice.
yeah, but Bradshaw's story is very interesting. How their one-child policy actually helped move things along. The reason they've automated so much, and
Uh-huh.
they're automation kings of the planet. Um, Not just according to him, but according to him, is they don't have enough workers. I know that
Oh.
sounds silly, but the one child policy isn't producing a workforce, a
Yeah.
young workforce. So they've been automating like crazy. And to give you a quick example of China's manufacturing, 30 years ago, I took students, 50 MBA students to China. I used to
Okay.
do that every year in the 90s. We're going through a factory, and there's a Chinese guy in a factory, and he's using a tool. And the tool that he's using, he's looking at it really close.
Uh-huh.
And the tool he's using, little pieces of metal are hitting his forehead, and he's not wearing safety glasses. My students and I were going, this is crazy. That would never happen in the United States. That's 30 years ago. I went last year to a conference on Chinese technology, and
Uh-huh.
during one of the breaks, they had a robot deliver an ice cream sundae with chocolate fudge and nuts on it, and the machine
Wow.
did it. I just placed the order, and this arm hands out, uh,
Yeah.
watch it. So everything is automated. It's killing manufacturing around the world, not just in the United States.
Mhm.
But we really need the help right now. What we need in our economy is healthcare
Yeah.
workers
Yeah.
to take care of guys like me that are falling apart. And so that's a good thing too.
Mhm.
If you're living in the Rust Belt somewhere, they're shaking their heads. This guy's an idiot. But what we need badly, that's where the shortage is
Uh-huh.
healthcare workers.
Yeah, I live in a rural area in Iowa, and we legislation was just introduced or passed in 2025 to basically we need funding to even keep the hospitals open 24 hours. So it could be if you're in too rural of an area, it could be an hour before you can get to the hospital, and that could be your life. So yeah, I really understand the need for um more workers, also just the need for more funding though, but it seems like
Yeah.
everywhere is short staffed. You never have the full amount of staff on at any of these healthcare places.
Yeah. And so that's what we're going to focus on in the United States. I will
Mhm.
say that around 2030, this explosion of elderly as a percentage of the population will calm down.
Yeah.
Right now, we're in the fastest growth area. So many of us, baby boomers, are
Mhm.
sticking around longer with all kinds of health problems. But that begins to settle out. So for folks like you, you'll see that problem going away beginning in about 5 years. For the next 5 years are going to be awful as the healthcare system changes, and we try to get people out to those rural areas.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, I talked about that Chinese guy working on the
Yeah.
machine, and when I was a young person, I worked for a company down in San Diego called Solar Turbines. We had a strike. I was a white collar worker, but they took all us new guys and put us in the factory. And so I worked on a factory for a couple of weeks during the strike. And that was a really monotonous, boring, dangerous job. I had to
Yeah.
wear earphones and I had to have glasses and I had to have heavy gloves to do
Hmm.
the job. And when I was in college, I used to deliver produce to restaurants. I liked that,
Okay.
driving around,
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
out and stuff. So services jobs, we are a services economy now,
Hmm.
and I think that's a good thing. But it takes a change in thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I'd anyway.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you about my sponsors real quick. Sometimes I get on a roll cleaning or gardening, and I need a boost but don't have time for a meal. Big Fork Brand's pork jerky is the perfect choice to keep my momentum, offering high-protein snacks for on-the-go energy boosts. Not only do they offer pork jerky, but they also make pork sticks, bacon sausage, bacon hot dogs, and burger and hot dog sauces. Products come in a variety of delicious flavors, including Thai green curry and maple and brown sugar for the meat options, and gangster and Chicago fire for the sauces. I personally think the original flavor of the pork jerky hits just right after tackling a big chore. It's a little salty and very flavorful. My discount code gives you 20% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit bigforkbrands.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. Are you looking for a gift for a music lover, or maybe some apparel to show off your quirky side? Old Glory has you covered. With over 300,000 officially licensed items covering music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture, you're guaranteed to find the perfect item. They even have seasonal gear. My husband enjoys the Beatles and Led Zeppelin apparel, and I love the Billy Idol apparel. I even found items for my fellow plant enthusiasts. This family-owned superstore is known for their quality and customer service, offers free standard shipping on all orders, and orders are shipped the same day you purchase. My discount code gives you 15% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit oldglory.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. Looking for a game-changing way to improve your health? Zevo Life is the world's most nutrient-dense whole plant, packed with over 50% plant protein, essential amino acids, fiber, and antioxidants. Harnessing the best nature has to offer, Zevo Life nourishes your body while driving your performance, vitality, and overall well-being. Each serving is a concentrated source of clean, well-balanced nutrition designed to support modern lifestyles, and just 1 teaspoon a day supports your gut, boosts energy, and promotes healthier skin and hair. It's no wonder that it's receiving rave 5-star reviews. Step into a healthier future with a 30% discount and a 30-day risk-free guarantee by visiting zivo.life and using my promo code. To support my show and to receive 30% off your entire order, enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. So, when we were talking about whether China is a threat or not, you kind of mentioned putting fear into people, and unfortunately, I think that's likely one of the biggest tools that politicians use to spin things to get what they want is by making people fear others, especially other countries.
Well, I'm going to say something that everybody will object to. I'm a veteran. I didn't mention that. I spent 9 years in the Navy, um, learning and practicing how to kill a lot of people at once. I was a Navy SEAL in the Navy. Fortunately, I never went to war. But I was asked by the Veterans Group on the UCI campus to give a talk on Veterans Day. And I mentioned, it's really, in thinking about what I was going to say, I just had 10 minutes. I was thinking about how different military experiences can be across
Yeah.
people and across wars and all that kind of stuff. And I mentioned some of them had horrible experiences. I never went to war, so it was more like some kind of sport or something for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I was talking about those kinds of issues,
Mhm.
but also occurred to me in this thought process that, in our national anthem, one of the lyrics is "Home of the Brave."
Yeah.
And if you look at how much we spend on weapons and how many weapons we have in our houses, that doesn't seem very brave to me.
Yeah.
Everybody's has weapons. And then the weirdest thing I ran across in preparing for that was the statistic of how many in World War II, we had 16 million GIs, 16 million Americans
Mm.
served in the military during World War II, uh, that awful war.
Yeah.
The question is, how many of those were drafted? And most people say, well, maybe 20%. It was actually 62%.
Oh,
So the
jeez.
majority of GIs that went to war went reluctantly.
Mhm.
And so anyway,
Yeah.
it's I think what fills Americans with fear is all
Yeah.
the politicians use it,
Yeah.
and the newspapers use it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The best, you journalists, I'm not blaming you, but the classic case is Samantha, I can't remember her first name, Guthrie's mother, who was kidnapped.
Yes, Nancy Guthrie. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real tragedy. That's an awful thing.
Yeah.
But that was covered by so much. And in my own life, I saw this living in Los Angeles in the 1980s. We had a guy he was eventually caught, Richard Ramirez.
Yes.
He was the
Oh.
Night Stalker.
So you
And
got to live through that?
yes,
Oh,
he
jeez.
used to kill the husbands and rape the women.
Yeah.
And he'd break into your house at night. And so he caused 10 million Angelenos to make sure all their doors and locks, all their doors were locked and the
Yeah.
windows shut. For the time I think he was operating for about 6 months.
Mhm.
But it was just weird how. So anyway, the media also likes fear because people.
Yeah.
Now I taught advertising. My favorite example of this is Toyota was running an ad they were cutting prices, and they showed a guy juggling running chainsaws. And you're watching this and going, God, he's going to cut his head off.
Yeah.
But the advertisers know that fear gets attention.
Yeah.
And this is the same with the car accident, the car chases. They cover that completely when there's much more important things. So
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
we're a fearful society because of the media, because of the politicians.
Yeah.
That's just too bad. That's just too bad.
Yeah. It is. I have a lot of different things I could spin off on just
Yes.
getting into the true crime world.
I'd be happy to talk to you again sometime. You're right. One of the things we cover on our website, if people go to Inventive Negotiation, .com, they can scroll down to we're using AI to put ideas on the table to resolve different conflicts. And one of the conflicts we asked AI to look at was that between mothers and gun owners. Is there a middle somewhere? And so AI is pretty good at it's bad at some things, but it's good at putting ideas up on the table.
Yeah.
And it's bad and it's good at being unemotional about it. So anyway, your folks could go take a look at that. But we look at other things like Iran and the United States, China and Taiwan. You asked about China. I think China has big problems. Their demographics are worse than ours. They have too many men because of the one-child policy.
Right.
Another problem the Chinese have is the creativity thing. They have a lot of people coming up with ideas, and they have very good scientists. but the educational system, the weakness is it relies on rote memory, memorization.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
creativity is different than that. They also don't have much immigration,
Uh-huh.
and immigrants bring ideas. It's the diversity idea
Mhm.
brings creativity. So they've
Yeah.
got some real weaknesses. They can learn from us, but uh, the collaboration, particularly in the healthcare area, seems important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then because I know that we do rely on China for pharmaceutical manufacturing, which that I mean that can be scary if for some reason we can't get those medicines. So if if we can figure out a way to, so to me it almost seems like we view in a ways view China as an enemy because of their manufacturing, because they have all these things and because we rely on them. But why is that China's fault? Why can't we, and I know that Trump has said that we need to, bring manufacturing back to the United States. I don't know why we have to hate another country because they're beating us in it. Like, why can't we get better, you know? Yeah.
Yes, I I agree completely. And that's the thinking we really need now, because this trying to protect our industries is not
Mhm.
going to work. It's going to make things worse. And we have experience with this. Back in the 80s, um, I mentioned that I studied Japan first. And so I worked with Ford.
Mhm.
Uh, in one of the years, they hired me out of my job at USC to
Uh-huh.
develop a program. So I learned a lot about Japan. We were very much afraid of Japan then. In fact, there was a survey done in the 80s of
Uh-huh.
Americans. I think it was Pew Research or somebody, and they asked Americans, what's more frightening to you, the Japanese taking over economically or Russian nuclear weapons? And more Americans said Japanese taking over economically. And that did not happen. It looked like it was going to, but now we still have a big trade deficit with Japan, by the way,
Yeah.
but we're really good trading partners. So
Yeah.
that's another reason why I'm not worried about China. I heard everything you hear about China today,
Mhm.
I heard about Japan in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Everything, all the same arguments. It's like deja vu or a bad dream
Yeah.
visited.
Do you get tired of it?
Well, I guess I don't, because I'm talking to you.
Yeah,
It's,
I guess. Yeah.
it is tough, though. It's very frustrating. And But all my work is based. I'm an academic, and all my work is based on analysis and peer review.
Mhm.
I was a colleague with Peter Navarro. I don't know if you know Peter
Yeah.
Navarro. He wrote books about China that were absolute garbage. We
Okay.
knew that at the time. We had a book on China come out at the same time. And I said, Peter, this is great. We can do seminars together. You can take one side, I'll take the other, and we could both sell more books. And he
Yeah.
didn't do that because he knew almost nothing about China. Um,
Oh my gosh.
and yet he was lucky enough for one of the Trumps to pick up the book.
Uh-huh.
And here we are with more fear of China
Yeah.
from the fear mongers.
Yeah. S so I have a q so we talked about Russia a little bit in their nuclear capabilities and, how they're still at war with Ukraine. Um, I I would assume that the reason that the Trump administration wasn't able to convince Putin to stop the war with Ukraine is because of those nuclear capabilities that Russia has?
I, yes, I mean, nobody wants to get a nuclear war going. I
Right.
hope that's true. But
Yeah.
there's something else going on, and in his first term, Trump was being investigated for his relationship with the Russians. And
Uh-huh.
I go back to his first, uh, again, your listeners and viewers might be interested in YouTube, but look at Trump's first news conference or summit meeting with Putin in Helsinki. Just do
Okay.
Trump in Helsinki and look at the YouTube and look at how the interaction between those two goes. And
Yeah.
we study negotiation, we study facial expressions and all those kind of things on video.
Uh-huh.
And Trump came to the podium and he looked like he'd been beaten like a dog. Putin strode up like he just had was attending a party.
Yeah.
That relationship has gotten stranger over time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know what was going on. And I guess there's a translator or two that know. But I go back to that. I pay attention to things like that
Hmm.
because of my experience in studying facial expression and negotiation.
Yeah.
And they were completely different.
Yeah. I'll have to watch that because I just can't put my finger on what's going on between the two. It's like they'll have a meeting and Trump always communicates things confidently, um but then like immediately after a meeting, Putin will send more um missiles into Ukraine or whatever, and it, I don't know why Trump believes anything that Putin says, and it's just I
Uh,
don't know. I
yeah,
can't put my finger on it.
yeah. The problem is neither one of them can believe what either one of them says,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's the big problem with our political system is almost everybody lies. If you
Yeah.
ask a sitting politician, do donations to your campaign influence your voting? They will all say absolutely not. They have to say that
Hmm.
because if they say yes, they're admitting to breaking the law.
Right.
So almost all, I know all the presidents have been lying. Obama seems better,
Hmm.
but it's not just Trump.
Right. Right.
Um, and so that's a big problem for our political system is trying to get the truth out. The other big example is weapons of mass destruction
Hmm.
at Bush. That ruined. I always use in our textbook on international marketing. We always consult the CIA workbook
Yeah.
uh, for some information, but that ruined me for the CIA
Yeah.
because that was completely false, and we went to war because of it. And for me, when I was doing research for my novel, I went back and looked at people like Nixon and Johnson, and
Hmm.
Johnson did exactly the same thing. So it's not just the Republicans.
Right. Right.
Democrats, Kennedy lied about
Hmm.
Vietnam, and it's well documented. Well documented.
Yeah.
That's a fundamental problem. But if my advice to anybody, if you're listening to a politician as this year goes along, ask that question, and they won't answer it
Yeah.
because they can't answer it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the big thing is believe what they do, not what they say.
Yeah,
And they're, they're very clever with communicating, but doing the opposite thing. And they're also great at distracting from, you know, pulling your attention over here. And while they're doing something else, they'd rather you not see. But
yeah, yeah.
so,
It's that is frightening.
yeah. Yep. So I have one more question, but when you mentioned the Bush versus Gore, that was the first political debate I watched, and that was when I learned about the Electoral College. I was 14 at the time,
Yes.
and
Oh, good for
I've
you.
yeah, I've followed politics since then, um, and yeah, it's been interesting, kind of over the years, seeing uh, the tactics and how the parties have changed and everything like that. But also, you mentioned car chases, and so I'm assuming that, and this is completely unrelated, but kind of funny, the O.J. Simpson chase with the Ford Bronco.
Of course, we all watched that.
Yes. So you see those Ford Bronco Sportsters running around now, and in that chase was so slow, and now I just every time I see one, like this little blue and white Bronco Sportster, I picture it in the O.J. Simpson chase instead of his giant
Yeah.
white Bronco. But anyways, funny things that run through my mind while we're talking.
Well, that's
But
good. That's
yeah.
the creative part of interaction.
Yes. Yeah.
Seriously.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like the audience to know?
They can take a look at all my books
Mhm.
if they go to grahamsbooks.com. And the other, I mentioned Under One Roof, and I mentioned And. The reason it's titled And is because creativity and creative negotiations is a team sport. So it involves you and me.
Mhm.
Uh, the other one is I've written a novel uh, that it's called The Hidden Front Line. And it's about a woman's view of three wars. And
Okay.
so her brother is in World War II, her husband's in the Korean War, and her son is in Vietnam. And it's about her struggles protesting the wars and arguing with the men in her family to pay attention to the fact that it's not just them that are at the front line, the
Mhm.
whole family is with them. Because when a soldier is lost or a soldier is crippled, that affects the whole extended family.
Yeah.
And so that's consistent with the idea of under one roof. The extended family is the key human unit. So, and
Yeah.
people are 19, they don't have a family. But
Yeah.
when I was drafted in 1970, I had a wife and a kid. And
Yeah.
so that changed my view from all my contemporaries who didn't.
Yeah.
I had responsibilities beyond. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
the name of that is The Hidden Front Line. And all those books are featured on the website. I
Okay.
also have a couple of kids' books that promote peace.
Okay. That one, the Hidden Front Line sounds really interesting to just for various reasons, I guess, but just to read those different perspectives. So, you
Yeah,
know,
most of the books about war are about heroism and how awful war is
yeah.
and all that. But there's somebody sitting at home. The original version of the book was Charlotte's War. My mother's
Mhm.
name was Charlotte, and she hated the fact that I was going off potentially to war.
Yeah.
The inspiration for the book.
Oh. My great niece is named Charlotte. So I'm
Oh,
fond of
really?
that name.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
Well, obviously, I'm fond of the name.
Yes.
But
Yep. Same. So,
yeah, if you really like history, there's two versions of the book. Um,
okay.
Charlotte's War is a hardback, and it has a lot more history in it.
Okay.
And one of the critics said, gee, there's so much history, I'd get bored. So I took some of the history out and republished it as The Hidden Front Line.
Okay.
This is more on Charlotte.
Yeah. That's a really cool idea to do, because then you can still share the story for people who might be more interested in history and those who aren't.
Yeah. Well, it's not my idea. I don't know if you saw the movie Julie and Julia.
No, I
It
haven't.
was about Julia Child, and Julia Child published a cookbook, and it
Uh-huh.
didn't do well. And she revised it, and she also went on TV, and that became the dominant cookbook in history, the second edition.
Okay.
So that's informed all my book writing. 3 editions of Under One Roof.
Yeah.
We're now in the 20th edition of Inventive Negotiation, and is the second edition of
Okay.
Inventive Negotiation. So
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, but I'll
Awesome.
let you go. You got to go, but I
Sounds good. Well, I have the link for Graham's books, and I will include that in the show notes. And I want to thank you for being here. And anytime you'd like to be back on, I have so many other things I could ask you. So you just let me
okay.
know.
Well, I'll call you tomorrow.
Sounds
No, it'll be
good.
a while. I'll wait for something new to pop up.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe we could talk about the novel. That's also interesting. And there's also, if you go to, there's some trailers for 3 of the books
Okay.
on the website on the grahamsbooks.com, so you can take a look at those.
Yeah, I'll do that. Sounds good.
Sam, it's very nice talking to you, and I really appreciate your attention to all these issues.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for being on. I really appreciate you. Yeah,
Okay.
sharing your information with the audience and myself.